we're saying because the portion of Behaalotcha, and which is basically lighting the candles in a very particular way, and actually looking at the whole of the portion of Behaalotcha. Behaalotcha, as a verb in Hebrew, speaks of being in the midst of the ability to raise or to rise, one can say, to rise oneself to a state in which to a state or to a work in which is it's under the mandate of actually reforming everything in order to get to a point of what is called the general Shabbat, meaning it's the world to come, where everything is already in its place, reformed. Okay? So we need to read it in this. So it's many stories, and this is why, because it's many stories, and they sort of vary from the very personal into and the general. It's like everyone is dissatisfied in this portion of Torah. The people are restless and are not satisfied from what they have. They don't feel in their place, or they feel that there is a constant gap between where they are and where it is possible to be. And this is why the complaint and the general notion of complaint is, in the beginning at least, it's not specified. It's not a specific complaint. It's sort of a sense of something can happen, and we are not there, or we are not being given that. Later, it's sort of one can say, find in itself the dress or the words to create the reality of dissatisfaction. So it seems that a sense or an emotion which is not clear yet becomes a reality when actually we give it a name, okay? Or we give it the word, or we formulate it into a description of reality. It's not that we actually described an actuality, we described a reality. Okay? So there is a difference, and the difference between actuality and reality is the tension of this portion of Torah. So first, it's as we meet the complaint. The first complaint is a general one. Then it sort of focus on wanting and missing to eat meat. Okay, like all the complaint is there in that which they are missing from Egypt. Everything that actually, when we read it carefully, it's not an actual food, it's more appetizers. So, and as well, most of Midrashim explain that they actually saying that it's not that they're hungry, because they are getting man every day, but they're getting it in such a way that each one can actually taste whatever he would like to have, but they could not see. They could taste, but they could not see what actually they're eating. And I don't know if you know, but we don't eat only with the taste buds. We eat with all the senses, particularly sight and smell. So what actually they're complaining when they speak about meat, they're actually saying that something in the expression of the will as a selfhood disappeared. They're missing it. They miss something that will actually reawaken, or it will reawake that, the way that they felt themselves to themselves before they were sort of sanctified. So there is a tension between they're closer to actuality, but they're actually missing the reality that they've known, because in actuality they don't know yet how to define themselves or what is the selfhood. And it feels as though they sense and they express that this part in them is sort of dissipating, like this man who dissipate actually after 4 hours of sun, meaning you can actually collect it only for 4 hours, and then it dissipates, it evaporates like a dew. And it seems that they feel like that something in them is inside a certain actuality, but they cannot hold it because they still cannot define themselves. So it needs another step into finality. Okay? But they don't sense, or they're actually asking to heal and to reform this part in them, this part of the will to receive to oneself, that cannot actually yet live peacefully, agreeably, happy, in not terms of sort of a wholeness of sense, in sanctuary, in a way of holiness, meaning that it is a whole, and you do not miss or feel that part of you or your self-expression or your selfhood is actually completely disappearing or annulling itself. Okay. So we see that at first it's a complaint of the people, and we as well see that this is one of the rare occasions in which Moses cannot answer, or he's so baffled by the rudeness of their being or the need to reform them that he actually wishes to disappear. He wished to disappear completely into the holiness which they could not stand, because they have in them still roughness and actually that which need to be reformed and will be reformed in our generation is the definition of self. And the more there will be the pressure of actuality, of wholeness, the pressure of all need to be connected, not in terms of globalization, in terms of true dependency, which actually is this dependency, you can see it in the word, the anti-movement against it will always be trying to find redefinition of nationality, of selfhood, which is different and this sort of puts you apart from other people. Unless we will find a new definition of self, which actually is serving wholeness, and yet does not cause the disappearance of selfhood. So this is actually the issue of this portion, and there are two things to see in it. It is actually the most profound teaching concerning how we use language, and we can see that actually the last part of this portion of Torah is punishment on speech. Is the way Miriam and Aaron are speaking about Moses. And as well we could see that they are actually asking him, as Israel as a whole, or the people as a whole, are asking them why actually we cannot go the one step that is needed, which is sanctifying everything that is secular, or one can say sanctifying existence in all its levels. In Moses, it's sanctifying family union, or the union between husband and wife, or in the language, in the true language, sanctifying the spirit with its vessel, okay, as it appears in reality. The way this portion of Torah is ending, we see that what God is saying to, actually, through Miriam and Aaron, is actually saying the praise of Moses. He's saying that the praise of Moses is so high and so unique, but it is saying something about the generation of Moses, not only about Moses itself. It is saying that the inability of Moses to be the Messiah is the inability of the desert generation to be the last generation. So it comes together, and it seems that let us just read it, so we'll have at least the wording of the Bible, and then I'll go into the speech. Okay. One can see another part, which is part of let's say what seems on the surface as a very fragmented portion. When we read it through the Zohar, we read the intention of it, we see the thread that connects it very, very, very strongly. It's paramount. Okay, in the consciousness of reading the words correctly. Okay, so there is those people as well who ask that because they could not actually celebrate or be part of the first Passover in the second year, because they were defiled, because they took care of the dead. They took care of the dead. It means that they could not be there consciously because they were under the dominion of that which calls death, which is will to receive for oneself. And when they sort of see what is happening, they want to do the step, to actually heal and restore and mend the gap between them and other people who actually got their inner freedom, or they got the ability to choose. So their request for second Passover, it's actually the request that is running through all this portion. Okay? But they are granted. They are granted the ability. Because they are granted the ability to reform to the point of actually joining, let's say, a generation consciousness. But I wanted to go to the end actually of this portion. Okay. It's on. It's paragraph 12. Okay. 6. Yeah. First, it seems that there is sort of a conversation between. It's not a public conversation, which we need to. It's not clear even that it was done in front of Moses. They're saying to themselves, in between themselves, why actually, after giving the Torah, Moses needed to stay apart from his wife. Why can't he have or practice a way of living which can, as I said, sanctify existence? So it's sort of a question in their heart, but it's as well the way the question is actually phrased, not having the right hesitation or awareness, and maybe a bit of too close comparison to themselves. So we start with 5. So after they have this conversation, we started paragraph 12, verse 5. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. Meaning they are coming, Moses is staying in the tabernacle and they are coming out of it. And he said, "Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all. He is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches and in similitude of the Lord shall he behold." Meaning it's sort of, there's less one can say, less hiding processes or sort of concealment. And it seems, we know that to speak mouth to mouth is not to speak in terms of utterance, but mouth as the deep meaning of it, which means intention. It means that Moses is able to attain an exactness in himself that is actually befitting the intention of the Creator, the intention of his action. So therefore, there's less concealment in between them, in the way that one can say the light, the message, the feeling is passing. Okay. So, wherefore, then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, not Aaron, it's not written, Miriam became a leprous. Okay. There's a few things here. We know that the end of it is actually the most beautiful prayer of healing ever, that is being sort of extracted from Moses towards Miriam, or towards actually any lepers. And I'll explain what I'm saying. I'll start with, you have to walk with me. Okay. We're not walking a line, we're walking more a dance of a butterfly catcher. Okay, so it's done. So starting this portion of Torah, which is Behaalotcha, actually starts when there is a full presence on the tabernacle. And Behaalotcha is actually, it's going to be actually an expression, or one can say a precept, with this presence, as the last portion of Torah ended, which is with a revelation, like the revelation of Torah, or revelation of God on Mount Sinai, is the revelation of Shekhinah, or of himself in between the cherubs. So what would be uttered from that is actually what is the most important action in this present. So one would expect, at least outwardly, to meet the precept of how the high priest is coming in Yom Kippur into the Holy of Holiness, or any other actions or ways of being which will have to do with the inner sanctum, which is Holy of Holiness. And suddenly we see that the precept, or the way of being in relation to this presence, is actually lighting the candelabra, or the candlesticks of the temple. It's not in the inner sanctum, it's outside of the inner sanctum. Actually, it does not point out that the most holy, or that which everything is happening as a result of, is not what is inside, which is Torah. It's what seemed to us to be outside, which is the expression of menorah, or the candelabra, okay, we can say, which is to do always, with this, the existence or the wholeness of Israel, is to do with what is called Knesset Israel, the power that is collecting, summoning, gathering Israel. Okay? And it has to do as well, is symbolized as well. It's not symbolizing, it's pointing. It's not pointing. It's an expression of the actuality of their identity. It is saying that their work in the 6,000 years of Reformation is in order to be able to light the seventh. So it will be like the Sabbath of the week is the Sabbath of the whole processes of Reformation, that will, all its light will be collected and expressed in the seventh day. Actually, together with the seventh day, with the Sabbath of the Creator, it will be together, it will make the eighth day. So we need to see that this is why the whole portion of this Torah will be a certain expression or of a gap, of dissatisfaction, of not knowing how to complete, how to come to this Shabbat. It will be, if you like, speech of the menorah on this portion. So, looking at this, I want to go into something that looks unrelated, but it's related to the way we are able to read this portion. Zohar find it very important to actually point us to our language, or how we read Torah, specifically in this portion of Torah. Okay. So we'll go to the Zohar. Okay. Okay. You can find it in Behaalotcha. It's I don't know, in the page is 381. It's section 3. It's under and the ark rested in the 7th month. Okay. 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 So they're actually bringing something. It seems like it's a complete example which has nothing to do with this Behaalotcha, with lighting the candles or the complaint. It wishes to explain actually the verse concerning the ark, and why the ark actually landed on the mountain Ararat. It means that they want, I'm sort of explaining the intention of the Zohar, explaining the intention of the Torah. I want to say that actually the ark and being in the ark is like the group, or the Chavruta of the Zohar, okay? That they actually, it's in the utterance, in the reading of Torah, they actually create an ark for saving all humanity from itself. Okay? So this is actually the way they wish to, bring us into the understanding of it. So we're reading in this article, and the ark rested in the 7th month. We're looking at verse 13. Yeah? Rabbi Elazar, surely Rabbi Elazar will open, because Rabbi Elazar is in charge of actually explaining the view of everything that happens now in relation or from the vision of Gmar Tikkun, from the vision of how it will all add up at the end of Reformation. So it's very important that he's speaking now. And Rabbi Elazar opened the discussion with a verse, and the ark rested in the 7th month upon the mountain of Ararat. And now he's moving. How beloved are the words of Torah, that each and every word has lofty secrets, and the entire Torah is considered supernal. We learned in the Braita of in the Braita the 13 qualities of the Torah. Whatever is part of the whole, yet it is an exception. It is so in order to teach a general rule, not to teach merely about itself. Since the Torah is the highest generality, even though a simple story is an exception to the rule, its function most certainly is not merely to tell us just that story, but rather to demonstrate the high matters and the utmost secrets. It is not considered as an exception so as to teach about itself, but rather to demonstrate a general rule. That story, since that story of the Torah, or that occurrence, although it stands to itself outside the Torah, did not come to show this alone, but rather came to demonstrate the general law of the entire Torah. Okay, so which is very important. So he's now bringing the example. This is the common, and this is the common link. So now, for example, we are 14. You have it? Okay. For example, it is written, and the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, on the mountain of Ararat. Most likely, this scripture verse is an exception to the general of the Torah and came to relate a simple story. He asked, what do we care if it landed on this mountain or on that mountain? It had to rest somewhere. He responded, it is only to instruct us on the general as a whole that it is specified, since it alludes to the time of judgment. 7 months, it alludes to Tishrei, when there is judgment or the pace or the presence in the world of of the action of the creation is of judgment. As we mentioned before, praise are, what is the connection? Praise are Israel, that the loftiest Torah was granted to them. What that has to do with that? He's asking why we're interested in where the ark has landed. The question is sort of anticipating from us to ask what this story has to do with giving Torah to Israel. What this language or this understanding, because only Israel can understand that 7 months is Tishrei, and it is to do with Rosh Hashanah, and it is to do with penance, and it is to do with coming May. It means that Torah is like menorah, is intrinsic to the selfhood of Israel. And this is why Torah was given to them, because they can read the actuality from it. And when they do not read the actuality from it, they are in exile. And they are actually being separated from it. Is it clear what I'm saying? So now we'll hear. Now we can see why there is this sort of they are joining Torah and Israel. It cannot be otherwise, because Torah is an intrinsic light that can be actually explained and read properly. How we know? Reading properly is the first task that Adam got in order to find for himself the right partner. The Creator is moving all living things in front of him in order that he will give it name. But it seems that it's not that the Creator needs for Adam to give name to all living things. It seems that from all living things, Adam needs to find its partner. Meaning naming something is finding the true partner of oneself. It means that when there is given of Torah, the true partner of it that can give it the name is Israel. This is how it finds itself. Slowly. Next Shabbat. Okay, so let's go back to the Zohar. He responded, it is not only instructed us on the general as a whole that was specified, since it alludes to the time of judgment. As we mentioned before, praise are Israel, that the loftiest Torah was granted to them, a Torah of truth. Whoever says that this Torah story is mentioned simply to relate only that story alone, may he breathe his last, or breath will be taken away from him, the breath of life that was given to the first Adam. Because then it is not supernal Torah. The Torah of truth, which this is the Torah of truth, is the supernal, not the story that we can read, not with the Israel part of ourselves or the Israel part of our spirit. But most certainly, the Holy Torah, the loftiest, is a Torah of truth. Because any other reading of it is not of truth.